Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and I think it's probably safe to say that anyone born maybe after the year 2000 probably does not have that much of an affinity for the Buck 110 folding knife. Now the 110 is a classic, it's over 60 years old, and for many of us it was like the ideal knife. That was the one you strived for. It was the first probably substantial folding hunting knife. This is my very first one, and this I think is a version 8 maybe, and this came out in 1978. I think I got it in around 1980. How? I found it. I found it fishing on the Blackfoot River. Actually, the Blackfoot River is known as the river that runs through it, you know, if you've heard of the book. But anyway, I found it, and it was like the greatest find for a teenager ever. You know, just thinking about that, it was just amazing. You wanted to carry it and use it, but it had, you know, the kind of the rougher edges, the sharper corners, and I noticed that the newer version, they kind of rounded things off, smoothed it out. You know, usually you can kind of look at the position and the type of rivets, both here and on the wood inlays, and kind of tell what vintage it is. But anyway, there were others at the time that were trying to be like lookalikes. This is the Schrade LBT. I think it's, I don't know, lockback something. But anyway, that also highlights some of the problems with the lockback, which is why I don't like them. And in fact, there are a lot of Spyderco-like knives I like, but I'm not thrilled with that kind of an operation of a lock. And I've had a lot of these fail over the years. In fact, here's a failure right here. I won't get anywhere near that lock, and I can force this thing closed. And I've had that happen with Bucks, with Schrades, with Bokers. But anyway, let's look at this right here. Notice that Schrade added a little bit compared to this guy here. The reason I'm talking about the 110 is it is trying to regain market share. But you can see how they sort of added some flair, some harder angles there. But one of the things is, you see this right here where there's wood damage? The idea of having wood that's exposed means you can damage it. And that's why Kershaw on their knives, when they started playing around with wood back in about the same time, they inlaid it, completely surrounded it. It's a little harder because you've got to make sure that it cuts, or that you're cutting, you know, and the grain is fine enough that it's going to fit in there. But there's very little chance you're going to whack it on the side, although I did manage to. It's probably more water damage than anything else you can see on these two. They also changed the blade styles. Now let me talk about that for a sec, because here's where I'm going. This, to me, this was my first sort of drop point knife. Oregon City, USA, old Kershaw here. But for the longest time, this is what everyone thought a blade should look like. It's called a clip point. It's a modified Bowie shape, or even though we don't know what a Bowie shape really is. But the idea was that this could be either sharpened or not sharpened. And the clip comes from as if you just took a big clip out of the out of a drop point blade. You just took this out, making a really sharp point. And sometimes these would be sharpened on the top. It was illegal for a long time. I think they called it a dirk or something at that point if you had a knife. And I've mentioned this before on the channel that David Bowie, the singer David Bowie, took his name from the Bowie knife, and the Bowie knife got its name from Jim Bowie. But David actually took it from the knife because the knife could cut both directions if it was sharpened here. So it's probably a little innuendo there. But anyway, there are newer versions of the Buck 110 now. They are carbon fiber, they are G10, they're Magna Cut, they're auto opening, and there are ones, obviously commemorative ones with stag handles, all sorts of variations, but pretty much the same design. And honestly, I think this design has held us back. Now that we're using all sorts of new blade designs, this is not the most functional. It's like a tiny Bowie. This might be better if it's, you know, 6-8 inches long, versus 3.75 inches long, 3 3/4 inches long. I mean, once you get out to something bigger, that's when these were popular, but it was also probably an easier blade maybe than some of the to make than some of the conventional ones. Buck also uses a hollow grind. Hollow grinds can be amazingly sharp, but have some strength issues. I'm not a fan of hollow grinds. I'm, in fact, just the opposite with a convex grind. But I'll tell you what happened. I do have an affinity for this knife. And the problem is, Buck made this guy. This is a Buck. If you look at the number here, 560X. What this is a titanium Buck 110. They made these in the late 90s. And I found one in a pawn shop. And the pawn shop, everything was ancient and dusty. And so I got it for a really good deal, but they thought that was a high price. But yeah, it would have been a high price maybe when they put it out in 2000 or something. But I thought about it, and that got me thinking about a lot of things. You know, the finger placements that used to be popular on knives, but made it hard to hold them in different directions. The lock back, that clip point blade, but they were really trying, and titanium's pretty amazing. Now it's a collectible. It's probably worth maybe as much as one of the new auto Bucks or something, depends. But here's a Benchmade. This is where I'm going. This is Benchmade, Benchmade's version. If you look, you can see there will be a number right here. This is the, 5080. They didn't seem to learn, from what I can tell. This is a hunting knife. It's in their hunting collection. And it's got sort of a modified clip point there. It's still pretty thick up front. No one's going to sharpen that. But they didn't learn the lesson with the wood handles. And look at that monstrosity. It just comes right to the edge and breaks off. Plus, if there's a hole there, I mean, that should have never left the design table. Anyone that's used wood knows that's where it's going to break. They do have nice big bright back spacers. I guess that's what makes it a hunting knife there. A little bit of orange up here. It's a good blade steel. It's S30V. But this whole handle thing is an abomination. And they do make this with other materials. So, where else am I going? Well, this is how you return a Benchmade these days. Now, in the old days, you just wrapped it up and sent it to Benchmade, to their Live Sharp, or their Life Sharp system, and no problem, they'd send it back. If you had auto knives, you had to sign a form, you know, how you were allowed to have the auto knife, and that was pretty easy if you were. But in this case now, you pay $10, or I paid 8 and change for it with my, you know, government discount. But what we've got is a great big cardboard box, and then instructions on how to pack it in this thing. I mean, and then you put it all in here, and then you put the label on and you mail it. This is just crazy. So I wonder what happened that required Benchmade, or maybe the Benchmade lawyers, to have to create some sort of a giant mailing system. I don't know. And at SHOT Show, you used to be able to bring your knives, and then Benchmade would sharpen them right there. It didn't matter what they were, but they liked them if they were Benchmades. Of course, then if you traveled by air, you might not have the Benchmades with you. But anyway, I do think that the Buck is a pretty cool knife if you grew up with it, but other than that, it's not the most functional. It's thick. It's got this blade does not have a lot of uses. It's not a good hunting blade, I don't believe. A lot of people think hunting like you're going to hunt with a knife, and no, you process the game with the knife, and this is not the best blade, which is why there are so many others, including a lot of really tiny blades, because that actually turns out to be really a good size. However, the shape really matters. But for those of us who have that affinity for the Buck 110, you know, they're still around. But if you don't, this is a knife you can skip. And for those who are building knives and maybe like the concept or the history of the Buck 110, I think the first one rolled off the assembly line in 1964, learn from it so you don't have this kind of stuff on, you know, a $250 knife. That is ridiculous, because everyone and their dog knows that's exactly what's going to happen the moment you actually use this thing roughly. So whatever. Anyway, this one's going back. I don't know what they're going to do. I assume what I'd like to do is just get different handles on this, but we'll see what my options are. They do make it, I think, with some thermoplastic handle. I don't know if it's a G10. But if you don't have a buck 110 and you don't really want one, they're way better knives. But if you don't have one and you just have that affinity for it, well, they're still around. There are lots of variations. You can get them used, get it out of your system, use it, and then you'll realize why we have so many other much better knives. I know there might be some argument in the comments. Go for it. I mean, here's my 2, my 3, and I just bought another one, so obviously you know what side I'm on. But I don't think this is good for the knife industry right now if people, you know, relearn this shape and this thickness and everything else. This was just the only good option for a folding hunting knife at the time. And, well, here we are. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. And with that, Doc out.